The extinction of the dinosaurs was actually not the greatest apocalypse in Earth's history. Long before an asteroid struck this planet, Earth experienced an event far more brutal. Around 252 million years ago, nearly all life almost vanished at once. About 96% of marine species went extinct, and terrestrial ecosystems collapsed as well. Even insects, a group that is usually very difficult to wipe out, were affected. This event is known as the Permian-Triassic Extinction. Many scientists call it the Great Dying, the largest mass extinction in the history of our planet. And in the middle of that collapsing world, a group of small reptiles emerged that would eventually become dinosaurs. The question is, why were they the ones that managed to survive? Before dinosaurs appeared, this planet was already filled with strange creatures. If we consider dragonflies small today, at the end of the Paleozoic era, there was a giant dragonfly called Meganeura with a wingspan of nearly 70 centimeters. Its size was comparable to a small bird. And that wasn't all. There was also Arthropleura, a giant millipede-like animal whose body could grow longer than 2 meters. Just imagine a 1,000-legged creature the size of a motorcycle. So why were they able to grow so large? The reason was related to the ancient atmosphere. At that time, oxygen levels on Earth were much higher than they are today. That is why prehistoric insects could grow into monsters. The ancient world was truly different. Massive swamp forests were filled with gigantic insects. The air contained more oxygen, and life looked incredibly alien compared to the modern world. But those conditions did not last long, because around 252 million years ago, something in the Siberian region began to change the entire planet. In what is now modern-day Russia, the Earth's crust cracked on an extraordinary scale. Lava poured out continuously for about 2 million years. This volcanic region is now known as the Siberian Traps. The skies were filled with dust and toxic gases for millions of years, and slowly, the Earth began to turn into a hellish world. Global temperatures rose dramatically. The oceans lost oxygen. Some studies suggest that tropical sea temperatures may have approached 40 degrees Celsius. The problem was that when the oceans lost oxygen, small organisms began dying first. Plankton collapsed, and small animals disappeared as well. After that, the entire food chain began collapsing one link at a time. And there is one detail that makes this situation even more terrifying. Some scientists suspect that a microbe called Methanosarcina may have expanded massively during this period. This microbe produces methane, an extremely powerful greenhouse gas. So it wasn't only volcanoes making conditions worse. After the massive eruptions triggered the initial chaos, these microbes may have accelerated the destruction of the atmosphere and oceans. In a way, the Siberian Traps opened the door to the apocalypse. Then, toxic microbes helped sweep away whatever life remained. At the same time, the shape of Earth was very different from what it is today. All of the planet's major land masses were joined together into a giant supercontinent called Pangea. From space, it would have looked like one enormous landmass surrounded by an ancient ocean called Panthalassa. Because all the continents were connected, the central regions of the landmass were extremely far from the sea. As a result, water vapor struggled to reach the continental interior. Some regions may have received almost no rainfall. The result was the formation of extreme hot deserts across much of Pangea. Days were scorching hot, while nights could be freezing cold. Dust storms likely swept across vast areas of land for days at a time. The only plants able to survive were certain types such as conifers, cycads, and ginkgos. Interestingly, the ginkgo still survives today. Meanwhile, the ancient oceans began filling with new predators. One of the most fascinating was Ichthyosaurus. The ancestors of ichthyosaurs were actually land reptiles, but after millions of years living in the sea, their bodies evolved until they resembled modern dolphins. This phenomenon is called convergent evolution. Different creatures can develop similar body shapes when they live in the same environment. And interestingly, they gave birth directly in the ocean. Their bodies had become so specialized for swimming that moving on land was extremely difficult. As a result, their young were born directly in the water, much like modern whales. Some species, such as Shawnosaurus, could grow to around 10 meters in length. This means that even before giant dinosaurs dominated the land, the oceans were already filled with massive predators. But after the mass extinction, evolution also produced many strange forms. One of them was Tanystropheus, a reptile with an extraordinarily long neck that looked almost alien. After the Great Extinction, many ecological niches no longer had permanent inhabitants. As a result, evolution began experimenting with many new body forms to fill those empty spaces. Some succeeded, while others seemed like bizarre designs. In the middle of this chaotic world, a group quietly began taking over the planet. Its name was Archosauria. This was the group that would eventually give rise to dinosaurs, pterosaurs, crocodiles, and even modern birds. And the reason the Archosaur succeeded was actually quite simple. Their legs were positioned more upright than those of other reptiles at the time. Their movement was more energy efficient and better suited for traveling long distances in extreme environments. In a world that was hot, dry, and constantly changing, efficiency was a huge advantage. Little by little, this group began dominating ecosystems. Interestingly, the earliest dinosaurs were not giant monsters. They were relatively small and lived in a world still filled with other predators. Meanwhile, another small group was also quietly surviving: the early mammals. One example was Morganeucodon. It was only about 10 centimeters long, small, fast, and active at night. Since dinosaurs and reptiles were more active during the day, these tiny mammals began adopting a nocturnal lifestyle. Some scientists even suspect that humanity's tendency toward nighttime activity may have its roots in this period. So long before humans appeared, mammalian ancestors had already learned to live in the shadow of giant reptiles. Then, near the end of the Triassic period, Earth experienced another major extinction event. Many dinosaur competitors began disappearing. Large amphibians declined dramatically. Several groups of ancient reptiles went extinct. And among all the groups that remained, dinosaurs were among the best prepared to face change. After that, dinosaurs began evolving into the largest animals ever to walk the planet. Around the beginning of the Jurassic period, the supercontinent Pangea began to crack apart. The giant landmass slowly split into two major sections: Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south. As the continents separated, animal populations became isolated for millions of years. Ocean currents changed, weather patterns shifted, and evolution began taking different paths in different regions. This is why dinosaurs in South America evolved differently from those living in Asia or Africa. Earth had become a giant laboratory of evolution. Dinosaurs grew larger and larger. The most extreme group was the sauropods, long-necked herbivores that eventually became the largest land animals in history. Names such as Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and Argentinosaurus emerged from this group, and their size is almost impossible to imagine. In addition, some scientists even speculate that a sauropod's heart may have been as large as a car in order to pump blood up to its extremely high head. Interestingly, the footsteps of sauropods may have generated vibrations strong enough to shake the ground around them. An Argentinosaurus might even have killed a human simply by walking too close. Even so, Allosaurus probably did not always attack healthy animals. Its targets were likely young, injured, or weakened individuals. The bite force of Allosaurus was not as powerful as that of modern crocodiles, but its neck was extremely strong and flexible. As a result, it likely attacked by tearing flesh apart with powerful movements of the head and neck. Meanwhile, the ancient skies also became an arena of monsters. Long before modern birds dominated the air, there was a group of flying reptiles called pterosaurs. They were the first vertebrates to truly develop powered flight, and the size of some species was astonishing. Quetzalcoatlus possessed a wingspan approaching the size of a small aircraft. When standing on the ground, it could even reach the height of a giraffe. And if the land and skies already seemed extreme, the Jurassic oceans were even more incredible. One of the strangest creatures of the ancient seas was Leadsichthys. This fish is estimated to have reached lengths of around 16 meters, making it one of the largest fish in history. But what is fascinating is that such a huge animal was not an apex predator. Leadsichthys was actually a filter feeder. It filtered plankton and tiny organisms from the water, much like modern whale sharks. Then came the Cretaceous period, when the reptilian world reached its peak. Global temperatures were warmer than today. Sea levels rose and created vast shallow seas across many regions of Earth. It was during this time that flowering plants began spreading on a massive scale. This change was extremely important because flowers produce fruits and seeds that attract animals to help disperse plants. As a result, relationships between plants and animals became increasingly complex. Pollinating insects evolved more rapidly. Many modern ecosystems began taking shape during this era. So while dinosaurs were at the height of their dominance, the foundations of the modern world were also beginning to emerge, and mammals were becoming bolder as well. One of the most famous fossils belongs to a mammal called Repenomamus. Inside its stomach region, scientists discovered the remains of a baby dinosaur. This means that at least some small mammals preyed on dinosaur young. But the most dominant sea monster of the late dinosaur age was probably Mosasaurus. This animal originally evolved from land-dwelling lizards, but over time its body transformed completely into that of a marine predator. Its legs became flippers, its tail grew stronger, its body became more streamlined for fast swimming, and its jaws possessed additional structures that helped it swallow large prey, similar to some modern snakes. Some fossils even show evidence that mosasaurs preyed upon one another. What is truly remarkable is that the reign of the dinosaurs lasted for an incredibly long time, more than 160 million years. By comparison, modern Homo sapiens have existed for only about 300,000 years. In other words, dinosaurs ruled this planet far longer than the entirety of human history. At this point, they seemed like Earth's permanent rulers. And ironically, their entire rise to power began because of a mass extinction. Then, millions of years later, planetary change returned and destroyed them. After the dinosaurs fell, the small mammals that had once lived quietly in the darkness of the night finally began taking over the world. And from that small group, humanity eventually emerged. If that great extinction had never happened, humans would most likely never have existed.